What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. A lot of feedback in the last video. A lot of feedback on Twitter about, oh, you're just so negative. You're never going to be happy. This is a step in the right direction for them. I think we all need to get on the same page here as to why franchise mode is so bad. To me, franchise mode lacks a lot of replay value. There's nothing that makes you want to play 10, 15 seasons in. Now, if you're going to sit here as a fan and tell me how tuning or commissioner tools or personnel management, playoff and Super Bowl presentations, X Factor, superstar customization, career stats, trade logic, retirement, or playoffs are going to make you want to play 10 years into a franchise or make you want to devote 15, 20, 30 hours into a franchise, I need you to explain that to me. Because these things don't actually do that for me. Focusing on these things don't actually make me want to say, well, I can't wait to see what happens next season with trade logic. I can't wait to see what happens next year with retirements. I can't wait to see next year's playoff screen. I can't wait for tuning. So I want to talk about where this game came from. Let's talk about preseason. And I could be that guy that shows you Axis Football or Maximum Football that have built some of these things into their game. I could be that guy that shows you all of these things used to be in Madden for the most part. I'm not going to be that guy, but I could be. Because I'll give some of you the benefit of the doubt that you might not know. You might be just speaking out of ignorance. Maybe you didn't play the game 10 years ago. Preseason Madden used to have a training camp. Preseason Madden used to have position battles. Meaning, when you brought that free agent in, when you drafted that player, there was a battle for the third string corner. There was a battle for the slot receiver. There was a battle for backup tight end. It added depth. It added replayability. They all go hand in hand. You had players that would hold out. I remember one year, I had Priest Holmes hold out while I had a position battle for the halfback. When you talk about wanting to play a game, when you want to talk about unique moments, I'm literally talking to you about something that happened in a video game to me 10 years ago. When was the last time Madden did anything outside of something ridiculous in gameplay that made you remember it for more than 10 months? Rookie workouts. Remember when you could actually have the combine? Trying to build your team. Offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, special teams coordinators. Not only that, but these things all work together. You used to have players who would come in and have certain expectations of what they wanted. Money, team leader, team icon. You had to build them into your offensive and defensive schemes. This led to position battles where not only is the highest rated player won because you had players that were a better fit for the defense or offense you were running. This affected the team's morale and would lead itself into those holdouts. These are really critical aspects of football. Before you've ever played one single game, you used to have to go through all these things. And every one of them meant something. Not just for the season you were in, but for the seasons you were going to play. That's what made some of this so meaningful. That's why when people talk about these things not being in the game, it matters. That's why when we say we want a commitment to make the game better, we don't want to talk about things that aren't being added. Because these things deserve to be in a franchise mode. Now let's move on from the preseason and let's go to your regular season. Let's talk about team rivals. When you actually used to play a team And the whole game actually started differently because there were two rival teams. It's a small thing, but it matters when the Washington team plays the Eagles, when the Cowboys play the Eagles. There's a difference in tone. There's a difference in visuals. Let's talk about multi-year free agent contracts. When you go out because a player gets hurt and you want to sign somebody for 3 years, not 1. That matters. Let's talk about player roles. I just touched on it briefly. But when you have players on your team that have certain roles, let's say one of them gets hurt, it matters. You can tie it back to real life. When Bob Sanders gets hurt, when Darius Leonard gets hurt, my defense struggles. I want to go sign a free agent player for 2 years, 3 years. Because I know I'm going to play the game 2 or 3 years. And I'm getting ready to play the Texans or the Titans, my rival. And I want to have a solid game and have players I can build with. And those players actually get live Pro Bowl votes, where you can go in and see in real time who's actually leading, not just in statistics, but leading a full Pro Bowl vote. These things actually mattered in the game during your season. Now, your off season, retired players becoming coaches. Ray Lewis as a linebacker coach. Chris McAllister as a cornerback coach. These are things that really happened in Madden. They really happen in other games. Restricted free agents. Not just everybody dumps out to get offered contracts. You actually had players that you could restrict. You actually could go to other teams and sign players that weren't even able to get offers from other teams. Depth. A reason to play the next season. A reason to build your team correctly. Speaking of building teams correctly, loading contracts. Front end, back end. You just saw Pat Mahomes get a massive contract, one of the biggest in NFL history. These concepts aren't even fundamentally in Madden. You can't take, if you want it, right now in Madden, to go sign a free agent quarterback that's aging because your rookie quarterback got hurt and backload a contract to save yourself the money in years 2, 3, or 4 because that player demands a long-term contract. Because in Madden currently, you don't have players that demand anything. They all want a single year. They don't talk about what they want. They don't have a personality. This used to be in the game. Before, if you wanted a player that wanted commitment from your team, they weren't going to take a 2-year contract. They weren't going to take a single-year contract. It might have been the best player, might have been the player you wanted, but it did not matter because the game presented a challenge, and the challenge made you want to continue to play it from one season to the next. Everything built together. It is all gone in Madden. Stadium sponsors. Going right hand in hand with the contract money and the revenue you built was stadium sponsors. And they gave you certain concepts that you had to meet, and you had certain goals that you could achieve. And sometimes the goals were a little bit easier than you would expect. Sometimes it wasn't as cut and dry as just make the playoffs. Sometimes it was just get 10 wins. Just get 9 wins. If you get to the playoffs, you get a bonus. But it wasn't what we have now where your goals are set at the beginning of the season by the owner of make the playoffs. It's more than that. Off-season had the Senior Bowl, which brings us right back to the preseason. You used to be able to look at what was going on in an environment. There was a living world aspect to Madden franchise. To some of you that have just been playing the game for the past 3 or 4 years, you probably wonder what a lot of us are talking about because what you've seen has been such a basic, repetitive, and boring, uninspired game mode. But it used to be so much more than that. And that's the final thing I want to talk about. It's more than just what they gave us at face value. You could go out and have totally different factors. This game mode, as great as it was, still got boring. You still had an urge to go out and want to do more. And that's where things like Create a Team came in. Whether it was the logo, the uniform, the stadium, the fan. You used to create fans. That's how complete the game was. You were designing fans. Create a Play, the Tony Bruno show, anything that gave that depth and element of that world. Historic teams. It's never something I liked. But I understand there was a whole segment of gamers that wondered, hey, what would happen if the Buccaneers first-year team came back to the NFL now? What would happen if some of the greatest teams in the NFL went through a full season? Custom relocation. What if London actually got that team after all? You're not building off an existing team. You're actually taking a team somewhere now that you can't even do. None of these things are in Madden right now. Not the way they used to be. And all of these things mattered significantly to the game's replayability. So I really question some of you guys that say, hey, these are steps in the right direction. This is what I wanted. This is what we needed. They listened to us. No. No, they didn't. They might have made some incremental improvements, but they didn't listen to the people that have been playing this game for 10 years. The people that have been playing this game for 4 years, you're used to being spoon-fed things. And the problem a lot of us that have played this game for so long have is we're asking for these things that used to be in the game. We're expressing to them how they would increase our enjoyment in it. In return, we're getting things no one asks for. No one asked for Superstar KO mode. No one really asked for the yard. We still don't know what it is. You're putting in all these things that don't work, that no one wants, that don't last, like long shot, and the things that made this game successful 10 years ago are not existent. So when you watch a video and you see me talk about, here's what they did in franchise mode, but this isn't really what we were asking for, and you sit there and type, oh, but they did things, oh, but they did listen, oh, you can tell they care now. No, they don't care now. No, they're not listening. And if they are, they're not listening to the right things. The reason we don't enjoy this game is we can't play it from one season to the next, much less one game to the next. We want seasons and games and weeks that feel dynamic, teams and defenses that feel different, an evolving challenge. We want to feel that we're immersed in an actual NFL simulation. You're the only game that can create that experience for us. And yet we're continually asking to do so many things. And to that point, many of us are willing to be forgiving in what can and can't be in the game. I'm not asking for the ambulance to come on the field anymore. I'm not asking for helmets to come off anymore. I'm not asking for mouthpieces or tattoos. I'll understand that the NFL has some things set in place that actually have you restricted. I don't need to see a player get injured and have a career-ending injury. I don't need any of those things. But guess what? None of these things negatively impact the perception of the NFL. Maybe you could say custom relocation does, but nothing else did. If you looked at what EA put out and you honestly feel like it's a step in the right direction, my challenge to you would be to either go play or go watch someone play a franchise mode from the past. Go back to Madden 05. Watch somebody do a playthrough. And this isn't even taking into account that the independent games of this market have added so many of these things because they know we want them. They know they're needed in the actual game. They know it matters to replay value. Maximum Football built a Dynasty mode in a year. Access Football built one in about 2. And a lot of them rival Madden in many ways. And they didn't do that by coming out and saying, we improved, we added, we build upon. They said, no, we put new things in the game. There's new features in the game. New is what is needed. And in Madden's case, it's not so much new, it's just return. Return of features. I think a lot of you guys missed that. I think a lot of you guys maybe didn't play the games that we used to play, and now everything seems negative. Because I'll tell you right now, there's no reason to be positive about this game than be positive that a lot of things used to be in it and aren't. Love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you checking it out, and you know I will be back in the week with more commentary.